What's going on YouTube? It's Teach, back again with another video, and today we are looking way too far in advance, but we're going to have some fun today and put together a way too early 2024 NFL mock draft. Yesterday, I put out a reaction to my way too early 2023 mock draft, so this is setting up for some great hilarity content in a year's time, but also this is to kind of prime your eyes for who you should be keeping your eyes on early on throughout the draft process, who could be that first round conversation. We're just doing one round, so there's plenty of names that are going to be left out, but that's where I leave it to you all. If there's any player that I left out that you think, hey, they're going to be a first rounder next year, let me hear it down below in the comment section. And of course, tell me what you think the strengths of the 2024 class are so far based on what we know about this group to this point. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Hit that like button if you do. Subscribe if you are new, want to see more football content. And let's waste no time and jump right into it. Also, this is the PFF mock draft simulator. They did not make the order. Don't scream at them. I did make one change though. I went ahead and had Tampa move up to 1 over Arizona. This easily could be Arizona picking 1, 2. But the reason I did that was to make Caleb Williams, number 1 overall pick, that much easier as opposed to giving the Cardinals a quarterback. And it's like, well, I think they're going to stick to Kyler long term. I mean, they just drafted this man a couple of offensive linemen. They got him a wide receiver in the 3rd round. I feel like they're wanting to build around Kyler. So I just wanted to remove that little bit of layer of awkwardness, even though this really isn't about fits. It's more so about the names of these 24 prospects, these 2024 prospects, that is. Caleb Williams, right now, the front runner for the QB1 slot. Him and Drake May and a few other quarterbacks, I think, put together a really, really good quarterback class. Caleb Williams is going to get a bunch of Pat Mahomes comps, and Tampa Bay could certainly use that long-term option. And now we do get to Arizona. Easy decision here. Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, he's a lot like his dad, and he was the best wide receiver in college football last year. I think you can play him inside or out just because he is that good. There's really not a spot on the field where he is limited. Complete package. I mean, yeah, just an absolute freak. And if he came out in the 23 class, he'd have been my wide receiver 1. Now, granted, it wasn't as great of a wide receiver class, but he would have been easy tier 1, wide receiver 1 in last year's class. So really excited to see what he does this upcoming season with the Buckeyes. And this would just be awesome to see him go to Arizona. The Colts at 4, I'm sure, would have words with the Cardinals trying to get Marvin Harrison Jr. to fill in for his dad in Indy. Then here at 3, I'm going to go with cornerback from Alabama, Kool-Aid McKinstry. And throughout this video, you'll hear me talk a lot about these guys' height, weights, and at least what they're listed as, and then some PFF grades, because, otherwise, all I have on these guys is what I saw at the corner of my eye while I'm scouting guys in the 23 class, or what I watched, as games were being played a year ago, pretty much. So, we're going to be leaning into the grades, and again, this is really early in the process. There is certainly a lot of flexibility, and these guys are going to fluctuate at time. But Kool-Aid McKinstry, 6 foot, 188 pounds, 81.2 coverage grade last year using PFF's numbers. So has that frame, comes from one of those schools you're keeping an eye on, and has that lockdown ability, and with the athleticism to go with it. I mean, this guy definitely has some of those boxes checked in advance to be a potential top 5 corner off the board. Then here at 4, I'm going to actually scroll down a little bit here on this simulator, and this is a little bit of a projection, but hey, most of these picks are going to be wrong anyway, so let's have some fun. Let's go Mason Smith. I know they drafted Adi Adibare to pair up with DeForest Buckner. He's still got Grover Stewart there too, but Mason Smith, he tore his ACL last year, and that caused him to miss the entire season. But otherwise, we're talking about a top tier recruit, 6'5", 300 pounds, and I think with the recruiting profile, the athleticism, and then that height, weight, I think all this could kind of blend together to make him one of the top picks in this year's class. Now, maybe he ends up going in that Brian Brzee territory, back 20s, or maybe he goes a little bit earlier and he goes Kalijah Kancey territory, maybe late teens. That's all plausible, but one of the top recruits. I feel like there's enough hype that could be there for Mason Smith. And since we missed last year, I could see us kind of getting swept away by Mason Smith this upcoming season with LSU. And of course, he comes from one of those Power 5 schools, which certainly helps as well. Then here at 5, this was an easy one. Brock Bowers, try to give, Eric Bieniemy, Travis Kelce the offense. If you've watched any Georgia game over the last 2 years, I guarantee Brock Bowers has at least made you say wow once. I mean, this guy is an absolute freak when it comes to being a receiver. Can be used out wide in the slot as a yak weapon, contested catch guy. I mean, yeah, easy early front runner for tight end 1 and one of the best tight end prospects we've seen in some time now. Then Green Bay here at 6. I'm going to give him Joe Alt. Yeah, I just kind of like giving them a tackle here. We don't know what they're going to be doing, long term at the position. David Bakhtiari, obviously battled a ton of injuries, and then also the right tackle spot looks like it, maybe not up for grabs. We'll see how Zach Tom fares this year. But to me, I love Olu Fashanu, who we'll talk about in a little bit, and he would have probably been early offensive tackle too, at least up until he decided to return to Penn State. And he may end up being that number 2 spot just because Joe Alt, and as a Notre Dame fan, I get the pleasure of watching Alt plus Fisher, who we're going to talk about later on, play every week, and those guys are absolute freaks. And I think, kind of right now, easy to consider them as first rounders. Again, a lot can change, but Alt feels like a guy who's going to go top 10, and you definitely don't want to lock it in right now, but I'd be surprised, and it would be a really mean downturn of a season if Joe Alt is not in that top 10 category. 6'7", 317, and then you look at the grades. Awesome pass protector each of the last 2 years. And then he actually took a step forward in run blocking and actually earned an elite grade from PFF. So just becoming a more complete tackle with time. Then we get to the Raiders here at 7. Easy, selection here. They didn't draft a quarterback in the future, so Drake May. Let's give him to the Las Vegas Raiders. Could easily be the next pick right behind Caleb Williams, maybe even supersede Caleb Williams as quarterback 1. I'm a big Drake May fan, but I also love watching UNC. That brand itself is just kind of entertaining to me. Has the size, has good enough weight, at 6'4", 220, strong arm, great on the move, great playmaking creation ability in his game. And, I think my one concern for May this year is similar to Sam Howell in his last year at UNC, where, May just had Josh Downs graduate. And I'm just looking at the rest of the weapons around him, and I'm a little concerned. It's going to be the same thing that happened to Howell his last year at UNC, where Daz Newsome was gone, De'Ami Brown was gone. Both those running backs, including Javonte Williams, were gone, and he was just kind of left to be the offense. So I hope Drake May can overcome a lot of that, but man, I think he's got every tool in the box to that you need, I should say, to be a top 10 pick. Then we get to the Tennessee Titans. This guy would have been edge 2 or 3 for me, maybe even edging out, no pun intended, Tyree Wilson for edge 2. Jared Verse, man, freaky athletic, super explosive off the line of scrimmage. We've seen him make a step forward from Albany up to Florida State. I mean, I really don't know what there isn't to like about Jared Verse, and I love guys who have already made that one step up in competition, like O'Cyrus Torrance last year from Louisiana Lafayette to Florida. Makes me feel that much better about them being able to make the next step up to the league, and I think Jared Verse can easily handle that. Again, would have been a top 2 to 3 edge rusher for me if he did come out this year, and we'll talk about that again with Fashanu not too far away now. Emeka Buka, I believe I'm saying these names right, but obviously with more research and more prep, I will nail these, I promise you. But Ibuka could be, he's a different receiver than Marvin Harrison Jr. I just think Marvin Harrison Jr. is kind of a knack of all trades, and he's pretty much great at a lot of different things. So he is definitely an outlier and an exception here, but Ibuka could be like the next route assassin, which I love these route running, technicians, these guys that you can reliably count on to get open, play in and play out. And then, Ohio State just has this track record. Brian Hartline, one of the best position coaches in college football. So any wide receiver that's coming through Ohio State, you naturally kind of have my attention just because Hartline does a great job. They recruit really well. I think Ibuka could be that next, top 10 pick coming out of Ohio State behind Marvin Harrison Jr., of course. But he wins with that assassin type route running ability, which is something that I certainly covet in wide receivers. Let me get back-to-back picks here from the Bears. Actually going to stick in the territory of Ohio State. JT Tuamalo, again, I do believe I'm saying that right. Good athlete, and with more playing time, we're starting to see the production follow suit. 6'4", 272 as well. 83.1 pass rush grade last season. Created a couple turnovers, forced fumbles in there as well. So I'm hoping with maybe 700, 800 snaps played this year with the Buckeyes, we see that much more from him. But it's been a steady rise in the right direction for Tuamalo. And then here at 11, not necessarily that the Bears need a tackle after taking Darnell Wright, but let's just say in this world, Braxton Jones does not take a step forward in year 2 and need to replace that left tackle spot. Again, Olu Fashanu was shaping up to be OT2 for me when he announced that he was going to go back to Penn State, trailing only Paris Johnson Jr., which has been around the channel for any length of time. You know how much I love Paris Johnson Jr., was a top 10 player on my big board, and Fashanu was not too far off. And now he's going to go back to Penn State, get another year of experience, because that was the one negative for him at Penn State if he did come out in this year's class, 1-year starter. Now he's going to be able to put that to rest. And man, he's got the size, the athleticism, and I think he's just going to get that much more polished this upcoming season. Then at 12, this is another one of those tricky names I got to say here, but UCLA edge rusher Laiatu Latu. I think that's how you say his name, Laiatu Latu. So apology if I am getting that wrong, but one of the most productive edge rushers in college football last year. 91.0 pass rush grade, and how about 12 sacks, 45 hurries last year for the Bruins, all at 6'4", 265. So he's got the frame, looks to be a twitchy athlete. Of course, throughout the rest of this process, we'll find out how twitchy. But of course, the production to follow suit. Easily could, and he was another one of those guys that could have come out this year, but and if he did, was making a push to be one of the I don't want to say top edge rushers taken, but maybe one of those guys who was in first round conversations, and certainly positioning themselves to be in that same conversation this upcoming season. Then at 13, I'm going to go Chop Robinson. So we're going back to the Penn State well. This guy was actually a transfer from Maryland to Penn State, and he is just like all Penn State prospects. Feels like these guys are all twitchy athletes, and Chop Robinson, is no exception. 6'3", 242. So not the biggest guy, but he can probably add some mass both throughout the process during the season as well with Penn State. But 92.4 pass rush grade. I mean, this guy had some takeover moments for Penn State last year, and it's explosive off the line of scrimmage. His athleticism is visible, so could definitely be a guy who goes top half of the first round. Then to the Giants, let's go Connor Beebe. I think left guard is still a spot where they can get better. And Beebe was a guy that had an opportunity to be potentially my top interior offensive lineman, my top guard, right behind, if you count Peter Skoronski, him, or just ahead of O'Cyrus Torrence if you don't include Skoronski in that group. Left tackle, then moved inside to play left guard at K-State, and he has just been great at both those positions. So you even come with a little bit of flexibility there, left guard, left tackle, in the case you get yourself into a pinch there. So a little bit of an older prospect, but man, the production's there. I think certainly if he falls to the back half of the first round next year, a contender is going to look at him and be like, yeah, that's a starter that's going to help us take their offensive line to the next level, and this guy's going to put us over the top. Then at 15, I'm going to give the Denver Broncos, an interior defensive lineman. Call this your Draymond Jones replacement a year late. Jerzon Newton, and 6'2", 295, so maybe not the tallest guy, but the weight I don't think is a problem either. Now, granted, this is what he's listed at Illinois, so these numbers are obviously going to probably change throughout the entire process. But how about being a great run defender and pass rusher? 91.9 run defense grade. Then you flip over the pass rush side. 36 hurries last year, and then on top of that, 84.7 pass rush grade. So production on both sides of what you need out of a D tackle, but even the hurries to kind of back it up even more. Good size, good first step too. So I'm really excited to dive more into his tape. Then here for Seattle, I'm not saying that Seattle is going to take a quarterback, but they didn't get one this year. So let's go ahead and talk about Quinn Ewers. Former top prospect coming out of high school, goes to Texas. Maybe not the starter. We'll see. Arch Manning is obviously there as well. But the Alabama game last year, because Ewers had a transfer from Ohio State, goes to Texas, and it's like, okay, will he be this guy that lives up to that? And you see it in the Alabama game. He only had 16 snaps, or maybe it was 16 throws in that game, but he got hurt before the end of the first half. But every time he had the ball in his hands, it was wow-inducing. It was like, okay, yeah, this guy is worth all the hype that he has gotten coming out of high school, and even what we've heard a little bit about at the college level, but we haven't gotten to see yet. But then, of course, he gets injured, and then not quite the same guy. So small sample size for Ewers, and it's really tough for us to glean off of. But if it's anything close to what he looked like in that first half against Alabama, this guy is going to be a first rounder. And then you throw in top of that, 6'2", 206, good enough size, kind of that Will Levis-ish territory. Let me get the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's go Jeremiah Trotter Jr., easy front runner for off-ball linebacker one, just insane athleticism. And you kind of need that if you're going to be this new age linebacker, 6', 225. Also think you could just play him in the nickel, just like, Clemson did with Isaiah Simmons, and then Trenton Simpson this last year. And a guy who's not only great in coverage, just under 90 coverage grade with PFF, but also 83.2 pass rush grade. So again, using him in the nickel could be an interesting way to take advantage of both those skill sets, coverage, but also his pass rush ability, which all that just screams Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker, and that was one position they did not address this past year. Minnesota here at 18. I'm not saying Michael Penix Jr. is a first rounder, but damn if he didn't play like one last year, Older prospect, a ton of injuries throughout his career, starting in Indiana, now at Washington, decides to go back and play with the Huskies. NIL, I'm sure, part of that. But also a chance for him to kind of prove that last year wasn't a fluke. Left-handed quarterback, and last year, man, you saw the arm, you saw the accuracy, mobility to go with it, and he stayed healthy. It was the first time we got to see him play a full season. So when we get to see him do it again. 6'3", 213, and he could easily have that same Hendon Hooker rhetoric around him. Like, yeah, he's a little older, and yeah, he's got his injuries, but man, the last thing we saw was him playing really good football. And then Penix might have an even easier argument where Hooker's coming off an injury at the end of this past season. If Penix stays healthy, and it's back-to-back seasons of a clean bill of health, then he may even sneak into that late first-round territory. All right, next at 19, I'm going to give Houston Dallas Turner, 6'4", 240. Got to see more snaps on the field last year. Solid player. You actually go back to 21, and he had 9 sacks on just 370 snaps. So I was like, man, 9 sacks on that small of a sample size, that's really impressive. Last year they didn't have quite the same sack production, only 5 and 648 snaps, but sack numbers can vary and fluctuate. And of course, Will Anderson gone, so can Dallas Turner be the next guy to step up on that Alabama defensive line? Then at 20, I'm going to give the New Orleans Saints Kalen King, and argument to be made that Kalen King was the better Penn State corner last year. And that just speaks to how good that secondary really was, because you also had Jair Brown flying all over the field, creating 10 picks over the last 2 years. So King just does it in a different way versus 6'2.5", 34-inch arms. Joey Porter Jr. King is 5'11", 188. And again, that's what he's listed at, so he is in jeopardy of falling into potential slot-only territory. We'll see what the arm length is, but if we're starting 5'11", these schools tend to give guys an inch or two, so we'll have to wait and see. But where he's a little bit smaller than Joey Porter Jr., I know this guy can play on his back foot and change his direction on a dime, can go make a play on a receiver, and has great break on a football too. So it just comes down to your flavor, Porter Jr. versus King. I think King is much more that fluid athlete, change of direction, more acceleration maybe, more agility certainly than what I see out of Joey Porter Jr. Then at 21, let's go J.C. Latham to Miami. They did not address offensive tackle this year. I do believe it's Latham. It may be something slightly different. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm getting in my head a little bit. But right now, the right tackle for Alabama. Venture to see him probably flip over to the left side with Tyler Steen heading to the NFL and getting drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. So 6'6", 321, so he's got prototypical size. And, has improved with time as a pass protector, and also been a consistent run blocker. So as long as that trend continues and he maintains a high level of play at pass protection and makes that flip over to the left side, then he's certainly a guy who could go somewhere round 1. Then we get to the Ravens, go back to the cornerback room here, and this is a bit more projection pick. Denzel Burke. I know the Ravens added Kai Blue Kelly, but day 3 pick. Not too much at stake there. And they could certainly go first round corner. They could go in a lot of different directions in a year's time. We'll have to wait and see. Denzel Burke hasn't necessarily played all that well from Ohio State. Not that he's been bad. He's just been, kind of good enough. But, has the frame at 6'1", 190, really good athleticism and a highly touted recruit. So this is a little bit of a projection in me saying that Burke's going to take that step forward and put himself in first round conversations. Now let's move on. We're going to have a pair of running backs go back to back here. And, Braylon Allen, he's not going to be in here, but he certainly could be in this first round conversation. I'm going to go TreVeyon Henderson, maybe potential bias. He went to Hopewell High School, which is like 30 minutes away from where I went to high school, but number 1 overall running back recruit in 2019. And then, man, he is just not disappointed once he got to Ohio State. And the more he's gotten snaps and the more he's gotten opportunities, the more he has shined. So this upcoming year at Ohio State seems to be his backfield, and I think he's going to put up some gaudy numbers. Give him the Chargers. Could be your Austin Eckler replacement. And then for Dallas, I know they drafted Deuce Vaughn. That was a great story. This is not me trying to push Deuce Vaughn out of the way or Tony Pollard out of the way. And instead, let's just add a third guy into the mix, and let's go with Blake Corum, who, had he not got hurt and had he come out in this year's class, was going to be my running back 3. And maybe even convince me out of Jahmyr Gibbs too, but I don't know. Gibbs was my RB2 the whole process, so that would have been tough to shake. But Corum has the talent to do that, and just a machine to be able to pick up 8 to 15 consistently. That's his chunk plays. It's not 80-yard plays, but man, has the prototypical running back build, right around 5'9", 200, plays with power, vision, explosiveness, elusiveness. Really about as close to a full package as it gets. He's just not going to necessarily have the most insane long speed, but don't let that 15-yard chunk dissuade you just because it's not 80 yards at a time. 15 yards, that's an explosive play. That's a first down and a half. So I think Corum can certainly put himself in first round conversations as well. And now looking at this on the fly, I did not plan out that I had the Packers taking both Notre Dame tackles. So I'm going to pull a little bit of an audible here, and we'll move up safety Cameron Kitchens from Miami. So again, apologies for a audible here on the fly, but Cameron Kitchens, 6 interceptions, 4 PBUs last year, and a lot of versatility. Most of his snaps were at free safety, but played a little bit in the nickel, a little bit at box safety, which you guys know I love these safeties. You can move all over the field. And then a 90.7 coverage grade to go on top of it. So you got the ball skills, you got the coverage grade overall, and then some versatility. That to me is a first-round safety. All right, now we get to the Lions at 27, and I am so excited. I thought about maybe putting in some of these Texas wide receivers, especially Adonai Mitchell, 6'4", big frame. But then, I mean, Johnny Wilson is 6'7" and 227 pounds. I mean, you do not see that build at wide receiver all that often. And on top of that, 800 plus yards last year. We got to see the touchdown production, and last year kind of was his breakout year. Now, hopefully, we get to see him do it again for another season. How about this? 20.9 yards per reception. That type of big play ability into an offense that already has Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who does it in a different way, but just adding one more wide receiver threat in the mix. And the Lions did not draft a wide receiver in the top 100 picks like I was hoping they would. So Johnny Wilson, maybe that could be a guy they attack and address and focus on in the first round. And then here at 27, this is where I'm going to have my other Notre Dame tackle come off the board. Yes, I know the Jags just drafted a tackle in the first round, but again, I'm moving things around here on the fly. Blake Fisher, the right tackle for Notre Dame, and just as solid as he can get, 6'6", 327, really good in pass pro, and then last year took a big step forward as a run blocker, so hoping to see that progression continue. And again, Alt plus Fisher might be the best tackle tandem in college football, and both these guys, I think, should be in that first round mix. Next, Buffalo. Speaking of offensive tackles, that I feel like I put them in this way too early mock 3 years in a row now. I certainly did last year to Buffalo with the last pick of the first round. I thought that was funny. But Zion Nelson, here we go, taking another swing of the bat here. Nelson got hurt last year. That's why he did not declare and go to the NFL draft. But the 2 years before that had developed into an elite pass protector. And Zion Nelson's one of those, he's an infamous name if you're a big college football fan. He started as a true freshman in week 0 against Florida and recorded a PFF grade of 0. I mean, like, he was terrible in that opening game against Florida. But this tight end converted to tackle, who would have thunk? Give this guy some time and not take that first game as a true freshman as too much of the the indicator of what's going to come. This guy's just gotten better and better and better and better year over year. And then 2 years ago, or I guess it's now 3 seasons ago, was in the mid-80s for pass protection. And then 2 seasons ago was in the 90s. And then, of course, got hurt last year. And had he not gotten hurt, I think could have played himself in the first round. So hopefully he stays healthy and we get to see this tight end converted to tackle really overcome that very first ugly start of his career and put himself into that first round mix. Next, Philadelphia, and I'm going to go back to the wide receiver room here, and we're going to go with Rome Odunze, I believe is how you say this name, 6'3", 201 pounds, big playability. He's had 10-plus yards per reception all 3 of his seasons at Washington, and then last year was a career best 15.3 yards per catch. So big play weapon, add him in the mix, and I just think this could be a bigger and perhaps even just straight up better Quez Watkins. Now, who plays in the slot? That's not really to be figured out here. It's the way too early mock. Don't worry about that too much. But I think Odunze's big playability, his size, his frame, and then plus the athleticism that he shows, as long as he backs it up with the actual testing, could definitely be a first rounder. Then we get to San Francisco, and yeah, hold on. This is one of those names I got to double check here. Kingsley, that part's easily. Suamat Ia, the tackle out of BYU, figures to be the replacement for Blake Freeland this year at left tackle. And man, at right tackle last year, he was as good as it gets. And I'm just looking at San Francisco. They did not draft a replacement for Mike McGlinchey. So Suamat Ia could certainly be that guy, and the more I say that, the better I will get at it. I promise you, by the time we get to the heat of draft season, certainly I'll have it by then, but honestly, by the time we get to my summer scouting for offensive tackles, I'll make sure I'll have that down. But that is a fun one to say, and the more I say it, the more I enjoy saying it. On to pick 31, let's go Leonard Taylor, defensive interior out of Miami. And also, before we get to that, let me just show some of the other names that aren't going to be in here. Cooper DeJean's going to be the next pick at 32 to Kansas City. Javon Bullard, we talked about those Texas wide receivers. Bo Nix could have forced him in here, but older prospect decided to give Penix the spot instead of Nix. Malachi Moore was somebody I floated around in the way too early mock last year. Could certainly put him in this case or in this situation next year. Braylon Trice is somebody I know a lot of people are excited about coming out of Washington. Michael Hall Jr. is another good name. Zion, I'm not going to say the rest, was in that potential draft mix this upcoming season. Decided to go back to Washington, so he's certainly a name to know. Jack Sawyer, again, always keep your eye out for your Ohio State players. And then let me get one more. We talked about Braylon Allen, who's someone else I think could work themselves in this mix. Cedric Van Pran. Got to give you guys one more before we get out of here. Jacob Counting, I don't think is going to fall into this range, but let's get you a deep sleeper of who can move themselves into this mix. Spencer Rattler, that would be a hell of a story. Chris Abrams-Drain, Tyler Van Dyke, another name we talked about last year. I'll go Chris Abrams-Drain. I could see him being a DB that smaller in stature, but he plays on the outside at Missouri and could just be that type of guy this year. Or, everyone's kind of envisioning him moving the slot and he just becomes that good of a fit for somebody. Jaheim Bell's another interesting name, and then Jordan Travis, another wide receiver, or quarterback, worth knowing there. But anyways, just wanted to give you guys some other names to know, and of course, I want to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section for who are the names that I left out that I should not have. But Leonard Taylor, 6'3", 305 pounds, an elite pass rushing grade at 85.5 per PFF, 4 sacks, 15 hurries last year, and also pretty good against the run, 79.5. So he's got the size, got the athleticism, and the production off of last year with the Hurricanes. So if he doubles down on that, could certainly be a late first rounder. And then to close this out, like I said, Cooper DeJean is going to be the final pick. Kansas City, they like these big, tall corners. And DeJean, 5 interceptions last year, also had 5 PBUs. He's 6'1", 204 pounds. So he's kind of got the stature that Spagnuolo likes. The only downside is DeJean is a zone-heavy corner at Iowa. Now, granted, his grades are fantastic. Coverage grade at 88.3. How about this? Run defense grade at 88.7 and a tackling grade at 89. So he's kind of an interesting player. Maybe even get some safety love. It feels like Riley Moss might be having that same consideration in Denver, and maybe DeJean catches that same type of idea from an NFL team. But that is going to do it for the way too early 2024 NFL mock. Here it is once again from top, now showing the bottom. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments section. Who's a prospect that you're really, really excited to see next NFL draft, and maybe who's a sleeper that I didn't include in today's video that you think could put themselves in the first round. And of course, let's just say this was the NFL draft in 2024. Would you be excited about it for your favorite team? Let me hear all your thoughts about this way too early mock 2024 and some names to know down below in the comments section. But that's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teach, and I am signing off.